Hey Chargers, welcome to our first of many how-tos hopefully, and this first one is on how to vegetable, or vegetables 101 if you will. Today what we're going to talk about is a few or one particular technique that we really like to help people improve the amount of vegetables that they have in their diet. Why do we want to eat vegetables? We're going to sort of talk about this as we show you the different techniques we're going to use, but there's three main reasons. One, vegetables have a host of micronutrients which are really important to our health. It's got a bunch of fiber in it as well, which is really important for our digestive health. And third of all, there's lots of bang for your buck when it comes to vegetables, and they're very, how do we put this? You can eat lots of vegetables without consuming heaps of calories. It's almost impossible to over-consume vegetables. So they're a really nice way to fill out the meal, make you feel really full and really nourished without actually having to consume heaps of energy. Okay, let's get started. I'm gonna take you through first of all what you're gonna need. Okay. Alice, fancy seeing you here?
Fancy seeing you here in our kitchen.
In our kitchen. Okay, take us through what, this is the weapon, the secret weapon in terms of how we're going to prep or help people eat more vegetables. Tell us what we've got here and why we have it here.
Well, we've got a number of different just containers, either plastic or glass, depending on whatever suits you. These are pretty much the host of all of the things that we're going to make today. You know, there's a whole bunch of different ways of doing meal prep, but just having enough containers changes the game.
Okay. Now, you said there's a whole bunch of way of different doing meal prep, and a lot of people will see this and be a little bit put off, like, I don't want to do meal prep. Tell us what, because this is not what we're doing today, but tell us what meal prep in its classic version is, because I know you've done that before.
Yeah, absolutely. So typically in sort of if anyone says we're doing a meal prep, it's you getting all your containers, you're cooking literally everything. So you're making meals, the full meal. So rice, a curry, whatever it might be, and then you're portioning it out into all of your containers so that from Monday to Friday, you're having the curry that you've made, which is already in your containers, and all you have to do is pick up the container, heat it up, and then you're good to go.
So what is good about, because we don't want to bag that, but that's not what we're doing. So what's good about that? There's some obvious things, but what's good about having
that? Yeah, absolutely. It reduces any sort of decision fatigue that you've got when it comes to cooking or preparing dinner or preparing lunch or breakfast, or you can do literally every meal, every snack of the day, prepare it, and then all you have to do is pick up your container, again, either eat it straight from the container or heat it up and then you're good to go.
So I imagine that you save the thing with meal prep is you save a fair bit of time on the day of eating the thing, because as Alice has suggested, you don't have to do anything. But actually, if you do a full meal prep for the week on Sunday, how long does it take you? It used to take you a long time.
It would take me, when I did it, and I did Monday to Friday, breakfast, lunch, dinner and snack, all day Sunday.
So it's like almost by the time you add it up, it's the same amount of time. And perhaps what we're going to show you is too, but some things about the full meal prep that you should be aware of. And again, there's pros and cons to everything, and maybe you can speak to a few of these as well. One, there's very little flexibility when you do it like that. So if somebody says, do you want to come out for lunch? Do you want to come out for dinner? It's really difficult to fit that in. You'll end up having wasted food at home because you decided that you want to do something different. Two, there's a very good chance that you get sick and tired of eating the same thing all week. You sort of think you could do it, but by the time Wednesday morning rolls around and you haven't eaten anything else but that curry, it's pretty exhausting. Third, and this is a genuine health thing, there's a very good chance that you leave out some nutrients in the food that you prep for that week. And therefore you're overeating potentially certain nutrients, maybe not overeating them, but you certainly might not be getting other nutrients. And I've often seen people that report after doing blood tests and things that they got low so-and-so, like, what, but I meal prep every week. It's like, yeah, but you never eat this food because it's never part of your meal prep. So it doesn't really allow for as much variety in its classic sense. Is all that relatively fair?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So what are we doing? We're doing how about we call it realistic vegetable prep. It's like replace meal prep with vegetables, and it's more realistic. So what's the plan here?
So we've got a whole bunch of veggies that are ready to pretty much just be chopped up and put in the containers. What this does is it means that one, you're doing all of the chopping of veggies, which is one of the hurdles, particularly that I find When it comes to dinner at 7 o'clock, you're like, far out, I don't have anything to eat. All I've got is ingredients. So what we're going to do is we're going to take out half of that equation of what on earth am I going to have for dinner, and make sure that all of our veggies are prepped so that whatever I choose to have, I'm good to go because half of the meal is already ready.
And I like that what you said about choose, because ultimately the way that we're going to prepare these vegetables still allows for a heap of flexibility in terms of what you'd like to do with them. And that's really key, because you don't want to feel locked into things. Well, I certainly don't like feeling locked into things, and what we're going to prep here isn't going to make that happen. We should probably make really clear what we're about to show you is not the only way to prep vegetables. And the vegetables that we're going to prep are definitely not the only vegetables that you can eat, and they're definitely not the only vegetables that you can do this style of. But in saying all that, there's probably a few vegetables that I know we love to eat that don't necessarily lend themselves well to this, and they're probably better in like a roast in the oven type thing. This doesn't work as well. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, potatoes.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily want to chop up your potatoes ahead of time unless you're cooking them at the same time.
Yeah.
But that being said, one of the things I did want to do was also roast up some potatoes, just to say, hey, this is so easy to do.
Okay.
So we might do a bit of that too.
All right, let's get to it. Very good. Okay, we're back. Shit. Should I start again? I should. Okay, we're back. We've got our vegetables out here. I want to stress that you don't have to choose the same vegetables that we have, but it's probably key for us to recognize that we've got, I guess, two groups of vegetables here for the purposes of our preparation. One that's going to go straight into the containers, and the other that we're going to roast, and then they're going to go into the containers. I would probably say, and I know that you feel different about the complexity here, but if you're like, hey, I don't need any vegetables, just give this to me really simple. I wouldn't go down the roasting path. I would simply do putting them into the containers, because you don't have to do anything right now except chop them up. But the roasting, like, I love roast vegetables, and having them there and adding them to this is a really nice thing. Is that fair?
Yep.
Okay, cool. You're conceding that. Okay, what do we got here, Alice? So take us through our 8 vegetables.
All right, so first off, you'll notice that most of these tend to be green.
Very green.
Was by default, not by design. Definitely we like to mix up the color of our vegetables, because that just means that you're getting different micronutrients into your body. So every now and again I love to grab some purple carrot, you can grab some red capsicum, white potatoes. These are kind of pink on the outside anyway. But the whole spectrum of different colors that you're looking for. What we've got here right today, we've got some snow peas, we've got some broccolini, we've got green beans, potatoes, carrots, asparagus, zucchini, and Brussels sprouts.
And which ones are we going to roast?
So we're going to roast the potatoes, and we're going to roast the Brussels sprouts.
Okay, and in terms of the order that we're going to do this, the best way to make this happen is we're going to do the Brussels sprouts and the potatoes first.
Yep.
And we're going to start roasting them, and while they're roasting, we're going to chop up the other vegetables.
Everything else.
Okay, brilliant. Just quickly, we talked about, I wanted to take you through the different benefits of eating vegetables. So you heard Alice mention then that micronutrients are associated with different coloured vegetables. And that's a really simple but effective way to make sure that you are getting a really nice varied profile of micronutrients. So micronutrients, this sort of sounds complex, but honestly, they're just nutrients that we need in very small doses to function. You've probably heard of macronutrients before as well. That's carbohydrates, protein, and fat, and alcohol's a macronutrient. They're nutrients that we require, not alcohol, in greater doses to function. So the only difference between micro and macronutrients is just the amount of those things that you need to function in a healthy way. Some typical micronutrients that you definitely would have heard of are things like magnesium, potassium, sodium. You don't need to know this stuff. As Alice said, if you've got different colors on the plate, then you're getting a really nice profile of micronutrients. All right, as we said, we're going to hit the roast vegetables up first. So we're going to start cutting up some Brussels sprouts and some potatoes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're doing Brussels sprouts here. Take us through it up.
All right, so Brussels sprouts, part of the broccoli family. All we're doing, you've got two options here. Well, we have two options that I like. So you're chopping the end off, and that can be it, or then you're chopping it in half. So just end off and out of the way, yucky. You can either just be done like that, or I tend to chop them in half and chuck them in the roasting tray.
Okay, far out, Brussels sprout. Take us through potatoes now. All right, we're done with our Brussels sprouts. We're on to potatoes next.
Boom. So potatoes for the oven, super simple. Step 1, on the tray. You don't even have to do anything. Simple as that. What I do like to do is one chop. Ooh, that one's, let's not use that one, hey? Here we go.
This is live TV.
In half. There we go, fantastic. And then on the tray. Okay. And that's it. Simple.
Okay. I like step 1 where you just put it in. Okay, cool. Awesome. Potatoes are done.
All right, onto asparagus.
Okay, I love asparagus, one of my favorite vegetables. Okay, irrespective of how you're going to do it, there's a few different ways to do it. You're going to want to chop off the ends first, because that stalky part's really not nice to eat, so in the bin that goes. From here, I actually prefer to just leave it like that, and I would just, it's very easy to cook like that. However, for the purposes of just showing you what you can do with asparagus is chop it up into shorter pieces, and we're going to do that today. So, into small pieces like this, and into the bowl it goes. Also, asparagus is a nice easy one, also very easy to cut because it's nice and firm. And there is our asparagus done. Yoo. Okay, carrot is next. There's lots of different ways to do a carrot, but for the purposes of how we were potentially going to prep them today, first of all, chop off the ends. My goodness gracious me, disgusting. Chop them off. Okay, and then from there, I'm just going to show you one of these. I'm going to go into a disc like that. It's probably a little bit thick, but that's okay. And then I'm going to go into half, and then I'm going to go into a quarter. And the reason that I want them that fine or that small is because they cook a little bit easier and will cook it sort of in time with the other stuff that we're going to prep as well. You don't have to do it disc by disc like that. If you've got a good knife like this one is here, you could do 2 discs at once, and you can go into a half, and then you can go, whoop, then you can go into a quarter there. And you could actually do way more than that. So it becomes quite quick and easy. That's carrot today. Okay. Zucchini, I like zucchini. Alice loves zucchini. It's practically impossible for us to have a meal where zucchini isn't involved. Let's talk about how to prep zucchini. Very similar to carrot, you're just going to cut off both ends, and then from there cut it into discs that can go into halves or quarters once you've got them into the discs. I think again, cutting it a little bit finer for the purposes of what we're going to do today is a little bit nicer, just because it will cook in time with everything else. So that's a little bit of zucchini for you. And nice. Okay, broccolini. Take us through broccolini.
All right, broccolini, super simple. All we need to do is chop the ends off. Now you can leave it like that. However, for the sake of my container, I'm going to chop it in half again and straight in.
Very simple. What we got?
All right, we now have some green beans. Now, green beans, all that you really need to do is chop off this like stalky bit. And you can keep the other end off. I, for the sake of it, do tend to chop both ends off. So I just line up a whole bunch against my knife, flip them around, line them up again, and go from there.
Lots of, possibly one of the more frustrating ones to prep, is it not?
Absolutely, because they're not always straight. You can also like grab a handful. You'll find some like curvy ones, which then don't fit neatly into your little like stack. Mm-hmm. But you do just end up sort of rotating those ones by themselves. Flip it around, again, line them up, and then place those ones in. It's still faster than doing them one at a time.
Are we going to cut those more than that size, or are you happy with that size?
So this is that's like basic step 1, don't do anything with it. Mm-hmm. Pretty much just leave them as is.
Yep.
If you find that, eating big green beans isn't going to work, or you potentially putting it in a stir fry, mm-hmm.
Chopping in half again, just so they're a little bit smaller and more like bite-sized pieces.
Sure. Snow peas, cute.
All right, snow peas. These are pretty much like your green beans, except most of the time they're a little bit easier because they're flatter. Again, we're just chopping off the end, so I do tend to, again, line them up, chop the end off, get rid of that, flip them round, line the end up. I know I've got one sneaky one hanging out in there. Chop the end off, and then again, you can chop these ones in half, again, if you want, or you can just leave them as is in the container.
Cool.
One thing that I do like is just having a bag close by. You can potentially have your bin, but just to sort of put your scraps in there as you're going along to quickly get it out off the bench, out of the way.
Okay, right now, if this is seeming too simple and you're like, I feel like Ed and Alice are just telling me how to chop vegetables, good. This is not meant to be complex, but the act of actually doing this is going to make you consume more vegetables. Like having some convoluted, hey, this is the complex way we do things and then eat more vegetables, that's not sustainable. If you're looking at this and be like, I could easily do this, that's exactly what we want you to feel, okay? So we're gonna clock this thing. We're gonna cut all these vegetables up for our whole week right now, and we'll get back to you and let you know how long it took us. For time. Okay, we've got the finished product here, and just so you know about time frames, it took us about 12 minutes to cut up the fresh vegetables. We were actually trying to go really fast, so it probably won't take you that short or whatever. And the roast vegetables, by the time we cut them, put them in the oven, let them cool down before we put them in the containers, it took about an hour, but you know, a good chunk of that time, probably 40 minutes of it, we could do other things. So, you know, it really wasn't that cumbersome in terms of time. Al, do you want to take us through what we finally got here?
Yeah, so of our roast veggies, we've got roast potatoes here and roast Brussels sprouts. Of our fresh veggies, we've got snow peas, broccolini, zucchini, green beans, carrot, and asparagus.
Awesome. Now, with the roast vegetables, I know that you were roasting them in something.
Yes.
And, you know, people can play around with this as they see fit, but what did you do?
So, we covered them in some coconut oil spray, which works really well, particularly for roast veggies, so you don't get too much of it as well. And it really helps crisp up the veggies when they are roasting. Other things that you could use would be like actual normal coconut oil, ghee, butter, you know, olive oil, olive oil spray, you can get that as well. So any sort of healthy fat really makes a huge difference on roasting up these veggies. In terms of herbs and spices, you can really go to town on whatever sort of flavor you want on them. I find at the moment I'm sort of on this, I go on trains of like, oh, I really like this at the moment, I really like this. So turmeric is always a go-to. Clearly there's not much left in the packet. The other one that I started recently is a smoked paprika. It just adds a really nice flavor to it. So that's on both the potatoes and the Brussels sprouts, and it was pretty much just to like sprinkle the thing like the packet of it over the top. There's some that have more, there's some that have less. Cool. Can add salt and pepper too.
Make it as fun as you want to and as complex as you want to. Okay, so what's how would we like you to apply this? I guess the point of this video or this tool is to increase the amount of vegetables that you're eating. So if you don't currently eat any vegetables, it would be a little bit of a silly play to be like, great, I'm gonna do this at every meal now. It sort of just won't work out for you. Try to increase the frequency that you eat vegetables. So if you eat them every second day, you're gonna try and eat them every day. If you eat them every day, you're going to try and add them to maybe one meal on a few different days. So on several days, you'd be eating them twice a day. The application of using this is that you come upstairs or go to your kitchen, I should say, for us it's upstairs, and you can do several things with this. You could just have them as they are. You could take a handful of each, throw them in a pan on the stove, heat it up, and then you've got some vegetables they're quite tasty, that you could add to pretty much any meal. But it doesn't need to be that bland. You don't just have to cook them by themselves. What are some other things that we could do or sort of add these to, Al?
So we've definitely done like an omelette before. So if you crack a couple of eggs, mix it all up. So start off cooking the veggies, like chuck a handful of each one on the pan first, add your eggs in once they're pretty soft, and then you're good to go. Another way is you could actually just put a handful of each one on a roasting dish, spray it with some oil, chuck it in the oven, 20 minutes later or so, come out and it's done. So there's so many different ways, and they're just sort of 3 quite simple ways of adding a whole bunch of veggies to your diet.
Yeah, and you know, we accept that this is not the most exciting or sexy version of vegetables, but the real time that this like trumps everything is when you're on the couch and you're pretty tired and you don't really want to do much prep and there's nothing in the fridge except these, and you're like, cool, like I'm going to be able to have vegetables cooking in 30 seconds. And that makes you consume so many more vegetables than if they were in their original form, like we had them about an hour ago. That's when you're just like, this is too hard, I'll just order Uber Eats. Yeah, so this is going to allow you to access more vegetables, and that's the name of the game. Anything else?
I feel like, at the end of every sort of cooking video, there was like, I'm going to eat this food.
Oh, God. Raw carrot.
Yeah. Yum,
Delicious.
go for it.
Okay.
Or asparagus. But we do have some Brussels sprouts, and we got some potatoes, so
I'll put on my vest. That's
you'll try
delicious.
it. Tasty. I'm going to try a potato.
Oh my God, that's so good.
Really
Alright,
tasty
guys.
paprika.
This is the first, hopefully, of many how-tos. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you very soon. Bye.